Hello and very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Sehgal. On the show tonight, we will bring you the reality of what is happening on the battlefield. With Kursk falling to Putin's armies, Ukraine is desperate for the fighting to stop. What happens next? Will Russia agree to a 30-day ceasefire proposal, or will it push forward with its offensive? Also on the show, we will get you the latest from Pakistan, where the Baloch Liberation Army, the Baloch rebels, have shattered the Pakistan government's complacency after they hijacked the Jafar Express and took at least 200 passengers hostage. We will also tell you about a new alliance that is shaping up. This one is between Russia, Iran and China and is being viewed as a direct challenge to the United States of America. All that and a lot more lined up on Gravitas tonight. Let's get you started. Tonight on Gravitas, we bring you the reality of what is happening on the battlefield. Ukraine is in retreat. Russia continues its advance. Kursk has fallen to Putin's armies. Zelensky has sacked the top military commander who was defeated at Kursk. And all this as global pressure for a ceasefire intensifies. The ceasefire diplomacy is following its own twists and turns. Ukraine is desperate for the fighting to stop so that its retreat can pause. And Putin is keen for more time before he agrees to a ceasefire, time in which he can push the Russian advance as far forward as possible. Well, after months of fierce fighting, Ukrainian troops have pulled back from Kursk, reportedly retreating across the border. Some of Kiev's most elite brigades have now repositioned themselves on Ukrainian land, marking a major shift in battlefield control. Moscow's offensive is heading towards what could become a comprehensive victory. Russia has systematically reclaimed territory in the Kursk region that Ukrainian forces seized in a cross-border operation 8 months ago. And just earlier today, the Kremlin said it has retaken 5 key settlements near the border, strengthening its hold over the region. Experts and war bloggers on both the sides say that Kiev's forces are withdrawing. In August last year, Ukraine launched a surprise attack on Russia when its troops surged across the border, capturing a major portion of Russian land in Kursk. In a bid to boost morale and for its troops and also strengthen Kiev's bargaining position in any future ceasefire talks. But after holding on to the pocket of land in Kursk for over 7 months, Ukraine's grip in Kursk has completely ended. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, described Russia's military progress as positive, emphasizing that Russian forces continue to reclaim areas previously under Ukrainian control, adding that the Russian troops are advancing successfully in the Kursk region and the operation is progressing well. The loss of Kursk has triggered major consequences in Kiev. We will tell you why. The Ukrainian general responsible for the northern front, which is an area that includes the capital Kiev and the Sumy region, has been dismissed. He has been fired. The man in question here is Dmytro Krasiyalnov, who also oversaw Ukrainian forces battling Russian troops near the Kursk border. And he confirmed today that he was removed from his position on March 7th. While he will remain in the military reserves, his sudden dismissal signals a shift in Ukraine's military leadership. And that too, at a very crucial moment. Well, that was what is happening on the battlefield. Meanwhile, on the diplomatic front, Ukraine's Western allies are ramping up pressure on Russia to respond to 30-day ceasefire proposal following the talks between the United States and Ukraine in Saudi Arabia yesterday. A 30-day truce plan has been put forward before Moscow right now. The U.S. government under U.S. President Donald Trump swiftly unfroze military aid to Ukraine after Kiev accepted the ceasefire proposal. And Polish foreign minister confirmed that military assistance is once again flowing through Poland into Ukraine. According to reports, Russia has voiced concerns about the proposal, suggesting that any peace agreement must reflect Russia's territorial gains and address its security demands, perhaps signaling that while negotiations may be on the horizon, a ceasefire is far from guaranteed. Meanwhile, Trump has made his first public remarks since the US-Ukraine talks in Saudi Arabia. He praised Ukraine for backing the ceasefire and emphasized that the next step is securing Russia's approval.
To get the Russians to agree?
I'll talk to Vladimir Putin, yeah.
When will
I
you
want to
talk
get,
to him?
look, that's the other, it takes two to tango, as they say, right? So hopefully he'll also agree, and I really think that would be 75% of the way. The rest is getting it documented and, you know, negotiating land positions, etc.
The Kremlin has acknowledged that a phone conversation between Trump and Putin could happen soon, adding that, if required, such a discussion between Trump and Putin could be arranged quickly. Meanwhile, just a few hours earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Kiev had no trust in Russia regarding the 30-day ceasefire proposal.
Ніхто з нас не вірить.
None of us trust the Russians. We have been through this before, but we will not play with the narratives that we do not want the war to end, which are narratives that Russia is spreading around the world. I am very serious, and it is important for me to end the war.
Для мене це важливо закінчити.
But the questions remain. Number one, will Russia agree to the ceasefire proposal, or will it push forward with its offensive? And for Ukraine, how will it adjust its strategy after the fall of Kursk? Well, as the battle lines shift on the ground and diplomatic negotiations intensify, the next few days could be extremely crucial. And well, new details have emerged of the stunning Russian strategy to win back Kursk. How an abandoned pipeline became the means to mount a silent invasion. As combat soldiers crawled through a claustrophobic pipe for 4 days to emerge behind enemy lines and take the enemy by surprise. Our next story explains this daring maneuver of the Russian troops. Take a look.
Darkness, silence, soldiers crawling through a gas pipeline inch by inch in a desperate bid to turn the tide of war. Russian forces stunned Ukrainian troops and reclaimed Kursk. For months, the front lines in Kursk remained frozen. Russian troops pounded Ukrainian defenses with relentless airstrikes and ground offensives, yet progress was minimal. The battlefield was locked in a brutal stalemate. To change the tide of the war, Russian commanders adopted a radical approach, one as audacious as the Trojan horse. Instead of fighting head-on, they would strike from beneath. Under cover of night, Russian special forces clad in protective gear entered a gas pipeline. Their objective, move undetected for over 15 kilometers to the Ukrainian-held town of Sudza. The preparations took 4 months. Oxygen tanks were delivered on March 1st. The next day, Russian troops entered in small groups, crawling through the tight 1.4-meter wide passage. This was a pipeline through which Russian gas used to flow, but President Zelensky switched off the supply. The pipeline was idle, but the Russians saw an opportunity in it. At dawn on March 8th, on getting final orders, the Russian troops emerged from the pipeline. The element of surprise stunned the Ukrainians. Chaos erupted as artillery and drone strikes rained down. Ukrainian soldiers, caught off guard, scrambled for cover. The Russian ambush was swift, brutal and decisive. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Боевой дух.
Well, shifting our focus to Pakistan, where a high-stakes hostage drama has just ended. The Pakistani military has reportedly ended its operation to free hundreds of hostages on a train that was hijacked by the Baloch Liberation Army on Tuesday. Dozens have been killed in the onslaught, and just minutes ago, the Baloch Liberation Army had claimed that it had killed 50 hostages, passengers who were on the train. Now, it looks like the operation has just ended. Pakistani officials confirmed the end of a train hijacking on Wednesday, with all insurgents killed after a day-long standoff. Security officials rescued over 300 hostages, though, like I mentioned, some were killed. Details on the casualties remain undisclosed as of now. The armed Baloch rebels attacked the Jafar Express and took around 200 passengers hostage on Tuesday. Some claim the number is higher. We cannot be sure right now. The militants say many of the hostages are Pakistani security personnel and the family members of the security personnel, government employees or Punjabi settlers. As mentioned, the Pakistani officials, they have just finished the counter-terror operation to rescue the passengers. While the counter operation has ended, let's tell you, how did Pakistan get here? Just days ago, various Baloch factions united, forming a joint military command to intensify their resistance against Pakistan. Their goal? To transform the Baloch insurgency from scattered operations into a coordinated, decisive force. And we reported this last week. It was clear that there was a renewed push by Baloch armed groups to target the Pakistani military and the BLA. It has been behind some of the deadliest attacks on Pakistani forces in recent years. Just last year, the Balochistan Liberation Army was responsible for 302 attacks, killing over 580 people. Well, at that time, did Pakistan underestimate the Baloch rebellion? Did the government fail to take the anger in Balochistan seriously? Because here we are. The Jafar Express was not just carrying military personnel when it was attacked. It had 425 passengers on board. The militants blew up the tracks, opened fire on the train, killed the driver and trapped the locomotive inside a tunnel before taking control. And now, what we are learning is that some passengers have also been killed who were taken hostage by the BLA. The BLA claimed responsibility on Tuesday after they hijacked the train, saying it had taken 214 hostages. And then another warning. They would execute the hostages if Baloch political prisoners, activists and missing people are not released within 48 hours. They further said that if the military intervenes, all hostages will be executed and the train will be destroyed. But the Pakistani authorities initially did not confirm the hostage situation. Well, the Pakistan Prime Minister has further condemned the attack, saying that security forces were repelling the militants. Meanwhile, Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi called the militants beasts for targeting innocent passengers. The Balochistan government has also implemented emergency measures to handle the crisis. But this region has long been plagued by such incidents, led by groups like the BLA. The Baloch militants claim that Pakistan's government and military, they have exploited Balochistan's gas and mineral resources without benefiting the local population. But this crisis, this hostage crisis, has made rescue efforts even harder at this point of time, because some attackers were seen wearing suicide vests and they were sitting among the hostages. While Pakistan continues its counter-terror and rescue operations, this attack exposes major security lapses and reveals the deep-seated issues driving the Baloch insurgency. While the area, for years, local communities have felt economically marginalized and politically disenfranchised. This has further fueled movements like the BLA, but now experts warn that this train attack targeting civilians could backfire on the Baloch movement by shifting focus from the Pakistani military to unarmed passengers. The BLA may have gained global attention, but it risks losing support among the civilian population, the very people it claims to be fighting for. A major geopolitical shift is unfolding as China, Russia and Iran tighten their alliance in what could only be viewed as a direct challenge to the United States of America. Beijing is set to host a critical meeting on Friday, bringing together senior diplomats from Moscow and Tehran to discuss Iran's nuclear program. And this comes as ties between Iran and Russia have strengthened majorly since the Russia-Ukraine war began in 2022. A strategic cooperation treaty signed in January strengthened their partnership, while both the countries are on good terms with China as well.
China will hold the China-Russia-Iran-Beijing meeting on the Iranian nuclear issue on March 14th. Vice Foreign Minister Majaushu will chair the meeting. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Ryabkov and Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Garib Abadi will come to Beijing to attend. The three parties will exchange views on the Iranian nuclear issue and other issues of common concern.
Iran confirmed the meeting and said it would focus on development related to the nuclear issue and also the lifting of sanctions. Now, this high-level engagement between Iran, Russia and China, it coincides with a closed-door United Nations Security Council session scheduled in New York on Friday, and that too is regarding Iran's rapidly expanding uranium enrichment program. UN's watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, claims that Tehran is enriching uranium up to 60% purity, just shy of the 90% required for weapons-grade material. Now, Washington's withdrawal from the 2015 nuclear deal during U.S. President Donald Trump's first term reignited tensions. Since then, Iran has steadily distanced itself from previous commitments. And China, meanwhile, has openly backed Iran's right to safeguard its nuclear program, while also advocating for renewed diplomatic talks. Meanwhile, the military dimension of the triumvirate is growing further. Russia, Iran and China have conducted extensive naval drills in the Gulf of Oman, a strategic waterway. Warships from all these three countries engaged in live-fire exercises, targeting simulated drone and boat attacks, along with counter-terrorism operations. Now, all these war games underscore a growing military partnership between China, Russia and Iran. It also marks the 5th consecutive year of trilateral exercises, reflecting a shared interest in countering Western influence in strategic maritime regions. Now, while China and Russia don't really operate in West Asian waters, their deployment is expanding as the region becomes increasingly militarized. Since November 2023, a month after the war in Gaza commenced, Yemen's Houthis have attacked ships linked to Israel in the Red Sea, claiming support for the Palestinians in Gaza. And a short-lived, temporary ceasefire last month put those attacks on hold. But the Houthis have threatened to resume strikes if Israel does not lift its blockade of Gaza. Meanwhile, the United States and other Western countries have also ramped up their naval deployment in the Red Sea, with a 10-nation force announced in December 2023 to counter Houthi attacks. The US Navy also has a fleet based in Bahrain. So, as these geopolitical tensions escalate, diplomacy is also intensifying. Earlier this month, Trump said he sent a letter to Tehran with a proposal to revive nuclear negotiations. And last week, Trump made his stance clear that Iran has two choices. Number one, he said Iran should either strike a deal with Washington or else US will handle things militarily. And Iran's leadership is rejecting any talks on Washington's terms. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, accused the US of using negotiations as a tool for control and not diplomacy. And Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said Tehran will not negotiate under threats or commands. Take a listen.
It's not acceptable for them to say, we're ordering you not to do this and not to do that, or we'll do this. If that's the case, I'm not coming to negotiate with you at all. Go and do whatever the damn thing you want. We don't want to fight with anyone, but we're not supposed to bow off in humiliation to anyone. Should they come forward with dignity, we will speak with dignity.
So the message from Tehran is clear. Iran is willing to engage with the world, but only on equal footing. With China and Russia in its corner, the balance of power is shifting clearly. The United States faces a unified challenge from Moscow, Beijing and Tehran at this point of time. Let's tell you what else is lined up for you on Gravitas tonight. We will tell you how Israel is gradually advancing its footprint in Syria by setting up new posts in Damascus and preventing the new Syrian regime from deploying long-range weapons. We'll also get you a story from China, where the country's number 3 has been absent from China's annual parliamentary closing session. The officials have blamed respiratory infection for his absence, but we ask tonight, is there more to this? We will also tell you how US President Donald Trump has turned into a Tesla salesman after he bought a Tesla S model. All right, next up we tell you what is happening in China. The country's annual parliamentary session closed with the third-ranked leader of a ruling Communist Party absent, and that is due to a respiratory infection. This is for the first time in recent history. The chairman of China's top legislative body was absent in the key meeting known as the Two Sessions. We are talking about 68-year-old Zhao Leji, who was not among the senior party leaders in the Great Hall of the People on Tuesday. Besides chairing China's national parliament, Zhao heads its standing committee as well, which meets every 2 months to review drafts of new legislation and also approve personnel decisions. On Saturday, Zhao delivered an annual report on legislative work at the second plenary session of the National People's Congress, also held in the Great Hall. He attended last Wednesday's opening session of Parliament and also met with the National People's Congress delegates.
Delegates, Chairman Zhao Leiji is unable to attend this afternoon's session due to a respiratory infection and has requested leave. Entrusted by the Presidium of the Congress, I will preside over today's session.
The announcement was a departure from the Communist Party's secrecy regarding the health of senior leaders, while there's no official suggestion that Zhao's absence is caused by anything other than illness. But let's tell you what has happened in the past in China. China's former foreign minister Qin Gang missed a 2023 diplomatic summit in Indonesia. A foreign ministry spokesperson back then attributed his absence to unspecified health reasons. And Qin Gang was later ousted from his job after a mysterious one-month absence from duties. A member of the Politburo Standing Committee has not missed a major NPC plenary session since 2006. The Communist Party almost never reveals details of the health of top leaders or perhaps addresses concerns about their age, making it very difficult for experts to track the internal dynamics in China. Shifting our focus to West Asia, where building on its expansionist goals, Israel is gradually advancing its footprint in Syria and strengthening its base. And from the looks of it, they don't seem to be withdrawing anytime soon. Look at what Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has said. He said that the army is preparing to stay in Syria for an indefinite period. He said that during his visit to the military outpost in the security area on the summit of strategic Mount Hermon. Moreover, the government has tasked the Israeli Defense Forces or the IDF to prevent Syrian forces from gathering within 65 kilometers from the border with Israel. Apart from this, the Israeli army claims to be building more outposts along the buffer zone between Israel and Syria.
IDF is preparing to stay in Syria for an indefinite period. We will maintain security in the area and on Mount Hermon and ensure that all security areas in southern Syria are demilitarized and free of weapons and threats, while also protecting the well-being of the Druze community in the area.
And going by its moves, it is as if Israel has had it all planned out, which it seeks to execute in stages, or if we can say phases. As a part of its primary target, Israel seeks to control the largest possible area of Syria and later segregate it into 3 regions that form what it calls its defense system. That's what Israel is planning to do. Let's tell you about these 3 areas now. Number 1 is the region extends from the peak of Mount Hermon to the Syrian-Jordanian-Israeli border south of Tiberias. This is important because it allows the army to monitor Damascus and the Bekaa region in Lebanon. The second region, closer to the borders, includes towns in southern Syria and is called the Security Zone. The third region, called the Area of Influence, it spans over 65 kilometers, bordered on the east by the Damascus-Suaida highway. And as it stands currently, the Israeli army controls the entire buffer zone from the border fence to 5 kilometers into Syria. 3 IDF brigades are openly stationed there as well, and they are tasked with preventing infiltrations to Israel. The army is also preventing Syrians from entering this area, with an exception for those residing within the 5-mile zone. Meanwhile, the Israeli army has defined the area less than 15 kilometers from the border as a security zone, where the IDF does not allow members of Syria's military to enter. The IDF is also preventing Syrian troops from stationing long-range weapons up to 65 kilometers from the border. As per reports, Israel is in talks with Russia as well to strengthen Russian military bases in Syria. Meanwhile, Israel has reportedly urged Washington to keep its troops in Syria as well. That's until Israel's plan is fully secured. Well, just for context here, since the regime change in Syria and the rise of Ahmad al-Shara, the IDF has carried out dozens of raids on military sites belonging to both the former and the current administrations in Syria, aiming to harm any attempt by the new regime to station its army near the border. The IDF also plans to establish a coordination unit which will focus on strengthening connections with the Druze population in Syrian villages near the border. If you're wondering how, well, they say that they will allow the IDF-controlled Syrian Druze population, which is a community which Israel committed to defend, to enter and work in Israel in a phased manner. Not just that, the Israeli army has also said to be committed to improving infrastructure of the towns where the Druze population live. Well, seeing all this, it does seem like Israel's plan is pretty foolproof, even though up until now, these are just claims. The moot question is, will Israel be able to strengthen its position in the Syrian soil? The coming days will reveal that. And standing on the White House lawn with a gleaming red Tesla, US President Donald Trump has thrown his full weight behind Elon Musk's struggling electric vehicle empire. Trump endorsed Tesla, calling it great and saying Musk is a great patriot. Our next story getting you the details.
Donald Trump, the commander-in-chief of the most powerful military on earth, wears many hats, an avid golfer, a successful businessman, a real estate mogul, a former reality TV star, and now he is assuming a new identity as a Tesla salesman.
I love Tesla.
Standing on the White House lawn, Trump is pushing the sales of Musk's struggling electric cars.
I'm going to buy, and I'm going to buy because, number one, it's a great product, as good as it gets, and number two, because this man has devoted his energy and his life to doing this, and I think he's been treated very unfairly by a very small group of people. And I just want people to know that you can't be penalized for being a patriot.
Trump quipped that he isn't allowed to drive the $80,000 car. This is not just a casual buy, it is a statement. Musk's Tesla has been battered by controversy, its brand entangled with Trump's political agenda. With Tesla's stock plummeting and billions wiped off its value, Trump's endorsement looks less like admiration and more like a rescue mission.
This was a remarkable display of loyalty from Trump to Musk. It's not so often that you see Trump reach into his own pocket to help out one of his allies. He's usually promoting his own products, trying to make money for his own family, whether cryptocurrency or sneakers or branded Bibles. But here he was trying to show support for Musk's company, trying to get more money into Musk's pocket, because Musk is serving as CEO of Tesla and as an advisor in the government at the same time.
Not long ago, Tesla was a 1.5 trillion giant. Now, it is in free fall. The company lost over $110 billion in a single day, dragging Wall Street into a $5 trillion wipeout. With market capitalization now at $845 billion, Tesla remains more valuable than the next 9 automakers combined, despite selling far fewer cars. Trump has given Musk charge of slashing government spending. But Musk's aggressive cost-cutting has met fierce resistance, protests, lawsuits, and political pushback. Tesla's image is taking a hit. Sales are nosediving in Europe. What is more, the e-vehicles are being vandalized in Europe. Trump, however, insists Musk is being treated very unfairly. Bureau report: WION World is one.
Our next story is from India. You must have heard about the alleged gold smuggling case involving South Indian actor Rania Rao. Now, in the latest, the Karnataka High Court passed an interim order directing the Revenue Intelligence of the DRI not to arrest her husband in connection with the case registered against Rao. This comes after Rao's husband moved the High Court alleging that he is repeatedly being called for interrogation and being harassed by the DRI. Just to refresh your memory first, here's what has happened so far. Last week, Kannada actor Rania Rao was arrested at Bengaluru airport for allegedly smuggling over 14 kilograms of gold into the country, which is reportedly valued at rupees 12.86 crores. Reports claim that she was carrying the gold in her belt and jacket, and that is just to evade inspection by the customs officials. That's not all. Rania Rao, the stepdaughter of a DGP rank officer in the state, has also been accused of using the airport exit route reserved for VVIPs. But it was not just Rao who faced the heat, but also her husband, Jatin Vijay Kumar Hukere, who got dragged into the case. Recently, in response, Hukere moved the High Court alleging that he is repeatedly being called for interrogation and being harassed by the DRI just because his wife is an accused in the gold smuggling case. Well, on Tuesday, the Karnataka High Court warned the DRI against summoning Hukere, whereas Hukere, the husband of Rania Rao, was asked to cooperate with the probe. Without following the due legal procedure, meanwhile, Rao claimed she had been denied her right to sleep while in police custody. This comes as she was arguing for bail in a special court dealing with economic offences. Meanwhile, images online showed her with swollen eyes and bruises on her face. And this has also triggered a political slugfest of sorts. Why is that? That's because the Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP, has alleged that the actor approached two ministers in the Siddaramaiah-led Congress government just to come out of trouble, to just wriggle out of trouble. And countering that, the Congress has alleged that under the Baswaraj Bommai-led BJP government, the Karnataka Industrial Area Board allotted land to Rania Rao in 2023 to set up a steel plant. And here's what a Congress MLA had to say.
It could be the central minister's hands, because when they are coming down from there, it is the responsibility. They have all the information from Dubai. When she's coming from an international destination, it is not only in Karnataka. So if they are saying, alleging, they might be hinting at the central government, not the state government.
And this has further raised speculations regarding Rania Rao's alleged political links and her real motive in what is being called one of the biggest gold heists in recent times. This is, by the way, it has also put spotlight on gold smuggling and price differences between Dubai and India. Courtesy Rao's frequent trips to Dubai, 4 times in just 15 days, which has further raised suspicion regarding the nature of her activities. This has also renewed conversations around India's gold import duties and restrictions which are in place, and if all this is enough to curb illegal practices like smuggling. Shifting our attention to Somalia, where security forces have ended a deadly 24-hour siege by Islamist fighters who had stormed a popular hotel in the central city of Beledweyne. On Tuesday, a car bomb exploded at a hotel in Beledweyne, kicking off an hours-long militant attack that has reportedly killed a number of people. The attack was carried out by Salafi jihadist military group called Al-Shabaab. It's an Al-Qaeda-affiliated group. Following the car bomb explosion, Al-Shabaab gunmen entered the hotel, leading to intense clashes with security forces. Now, after 24 hours, the officials say that the attackers have been neutralized.
They first attacked us with a vehicle laden with explosives. Since I was among those on duty during the initial attack, I also fought against the assailants. We truly fought to the end, but there were also suicide attackers. One of them detonated himself inside, resulting in the highest number of casualties.
According to the mayor, 7 people had been killed in the attack, but witnesses say that the death toll could be higher. The hotel where the attack took place houses elders and military officers involved in coordinating the government's offensive against Al-Shabaab. Most of those in attendance had been rescued. It is unclear as of now how many people have been wounded, but the lawmakers say that they were trying to organize planes to fly victims to Mogadishu for treatment. And parts of the hotel were reduced to rubble as government forces and gunmen exchanged fire. The 24-hour siege ended on Wednesday morning, leaving major and colossal damage. Among those killed in the attack were military officers, traditional elders and soldiers. Al-Shabaab said that it had killed 20 people, including government officials and leaders of a pro-government clan militia. But here's what you should be knowing about this area where the attack took place, Beledweyne, which is about 335 kilometers north of the capital of Mogadishu. It is an important location in the campaign against Al-Shabaab. The Somali forces alongside African Union peacekeepers continue to wage a campaign against the Al-Shabaab militants, which remain a big threat despite the ongoing military operations. Al-Shabaab, which opposes Somalia's federal government, frequently carries out bombings and assaults targeting government officials and also military personnel. According to a latest U.S. State Department report, Al-Shabaab uses its influence in Somalia to extort millions of dollars in revenue from residents and businesses. The group controls parts of rural Somalia and poses a major threat despite sustained military operations by government troops and also African Union. The question of the Dalai Lama's successor has stirred a fresh row between China and the Tibetan spiritual leader. China has strongly objected to the Dalai Lama's remarks that his successor will be born outside China, maintaining that Dalai Lama's successor was born in China's Tibet. In his new book, Voice of the Voiceless, the Dalai Lama has said his successor will be born in the free world, which he describes as outside China. He said his successor will carry on his work as the leader of Tibetan Buddhism. Responding strongly to this, Beijing asserted that China will choose the next spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism. As Dalai Lama, it belongs to China's Tibet, and his religious status and names are approved by China's central government. China also claims the then Chinese government identified the current 14th Dalai Lama in accordance with religious rituals and historical conventions. Just last month, Beijing said it hoped Dalai Lama will return to what it called the right path and recognize Tibet and Taiwan as inalienable parts of China. However, rejecting China's stance, the Dalai Lama has said any successor named by China will not be respected. The spiritual leader previously said only he could reincarnate outside Tibet, possibly in India, where he has been living in exile since 1959. He also said that the line of spiritual leaders might end with him. In his book, The Dalai Lama claims to have received several petitions over the years asking him to ensure that the line of Dalai Lama is continued. He claims Tibet is under repressive communist Chinese rule and that the campaign for the freedom of the Tibetan people will continue even after his death. Tibetan tradition holds that the soul of a senior Buddhist monk is reincarnated in the body of a child after his death. The current Dalai Lama was identified as the reincarnation of his predecessor when he was just 2 years old. The China-Tibet conflict has been ongoing for decades now. The Tibetan government in exile asserts that Tibet was an independent state till the People's Republic of China invaded it in 1949. On the other hand, the Republic of China claims that Tibet has always been a part of the country. Our next story is about a medical marvel. An Australian man has survived 100 days with an artificial heart. A world-first success. Yes, you heard that right. That's what has happened. An Australian man with heart failure has become the first person in the world to walk out of a hospital with a total artificial heart implant. On Wednesday, Australian researchers and doctors behind the operation announced that the implant had been an unmitigated clinical success after the man lived with the device for more than 100 days before receiving a donor heart transplant in early March. The WION total artificial heart was invented by Dr. Daniel Timms. This is the world's first implantable rotary blood pump. Capable of fully replacing a human heart, it uses magnetic technology to replicate the natural blood flow of a healthy heart. While the implant is still in the early stages of clinical study, it has been designed for patients with end-stage biventricular heart failure, a condition that often develops after heart attacks and reaches a point where it can no longer pump blood effectively. So this is big, because every year, more than 23 million people worldwide suffer from heart failure, yet only 6,000 receive a donor heart. This is according to the Australian government, which has invested $50 million into this. The implant is intended as a sort of life-saving bridge to keep patients alive until a donor heart becomes available. But is WION's long-term ambition to enable implant recipients to live without needing a heart transplant? Which brings us to the man at the center of this story, a man in his 40s from New South Wales, who was suffering from severe heart failure, and he volunteered to become the first recipient of the total artificial heart in Australia. He is the 6th recipient of a total artificial heart in the world. The first 5 implants took place last year in the US, with all patients receiving donor hearts before leaving hospital. And the longest time a patient had spent with the device before a transplant, it is 27 days. The Australian patient received the device on 22nd of November at St. Vincent's Hospital in Sydney. In a 6-hour procedure, he became the first patient to go home with the implant and lived with it for over 100 days. That's before receiving a donor heart in March. Jans called it a privilege to be part of this historical medical breakthrough. But while experts have hailed this as a great step forward for artificial hearts, there are still challenges ahead. Professor David Colquhoun, a board member of the Heart Foundation, pointed out that while the device functioned for over 100 days, a donor heart can last more than 10 years. He also noted that advances in heart medications have reduced majorly the number of patients needing such implants, and still this is just the beginning. The WION implant is part of a series of groundbreaking procedures. which is being conducted under Monash University's Artificial Heart Frontiers program. The program aims to develop 3 key devices to treat the most common forms of heart failure, and to that we say a revolution in heart care could be closer than we can imagine. Our next story is right from our solar system. Have you ever wondered how many moons our planets have? If not, astronomers have some answers for you. And as per latest findings, Saturn has officially replaced Jupiter as the planet with the most number of moons. The International Astronomical Union officially recognized 128 new moons orbiting the ringed planet Saturn, which brings its current moon count to 274, which is nearly twice as many as all the other planets combined. This also means that Saturn has finally defeated Jupiter, which was believed to have the most number of moons till date, and thus claimed the title Moon King. And going by the latest, one can perhaps say Saturn has managed to dethrone Jupiter successfully, and experts say it will be hard for Jupiter to catch up, which as of 2024 has only 95 moons with confirmed orbits. If you're wondering what about other planets in comparison, Mercury and Venus are moonless. Earth has 1 moon, Mars has 2, Uranus and Neptune have 28 and 16 known moons respectively. Despite not being a planet, Pluto has 5 moons. You see, the universe till date remains vastly untapped, with always more out there than what meets the eye. But how can this discovery of moons help? Well, as per reports, closer observations of tiny moons, which may not be visible to the naked eye all the time, could give scientists a window into a turbulent period in the early solar system. This can help them know the universe a lot better and give them reasons to be over the moon, quite literally. And well, that's all that we have on the show for you tonight. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION World is One. Please stay tuned.
General Brice Oligui Nguema, the strongman of Gabon since the 2023 coup that overthrew the Bongo dynasty, submits his candidacy for the April 2025 presidential election. In a remote Maasai community in Kenya, young girls are learning more than just academics. They are training to stand up for themselves. And a Nigerian mother turns her crochet passion into thriving footwear business. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION World is One.
Unlocking the future of finance.
Dive into the world of tokenization with me
as we yield the power of tokenization.
Discover the future of
ownership, where I decode, demystify tokenization for you.
Empowering the tokenized revolution.
Get ready to dive for an in-depth look at tokenization.
Busting the myths around tokenization.
Catch me on Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet only on WION.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.